Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live's Leaf Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me on Leaf Talk, Aaron William Freeland, and our very special lucky charm, Eduardo Harari, to make sure the Leafs don't lose the next game. We made the mistake. We didn't have Eduardo on. And the Leafs went on to lose, and they lost in the opposite fashion that they won. In other words, power play penalty killing bit them on the derriere.
This was, I think, a case of them just being a little over enthusiastic and not realizing exactly how tight the refs were going to call it. And I think they found themselves in the same position as the Bruins have.
Oh, no, Bruins have lost 2. So, no. They're not in the same position.
No, but in the sense that they're not 100% sure exactly what the referees are going to be calling.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Eduardo, what do you think? Other than the fact that you weren't on the show that night, and that was the reason why they lost, are there any other reasons in your mind?
Plenty.
Uh-oh.
Plenty. Remember on Monday night I said, and I asked us, I had a special request of Mr. Sheldon Keefe.
Uh-oh.
And I asked him, please don't change the lineups. Please don't change the cards, because every time that we do that, we tend to lose.
He kind of had no choice. One player was sort of the league said he couldn't use them, so it wasn't a decision he made.
But the main players were there. Mm-hmm. The main line was there, and he changed it. Line 1 was changed. Therefore,
are you saying because he put Nylander up there?
I am not saying that Nylander was the reason, but when there is a cohesiveness and you win 5-0, you don't change the plate. You have to learn what works.
Well, I think also
it's a tradition.
I don't know.
It's a Leafs tradition.
I think also the game dictated a different. It went from them being to the power play early in the game, and the success they had early in the game in game 1 where they won 5-0. The opposite was true, right, Aaron, in game 2?
No, it was basically like the NHL had decided to just flip the script and everything was just backwards.
Let's see, this didn't work. Let's try this.
Yeah.
Is that what you're implying?
Well, and let's be honest, even the Tampa Bay coach John Cooper had the same sort of thing to say. He said, "You know what? They basically called everything that should have been a penalty, would have been a penalty, and could have been a penalty, which is what they should be doing." And it's almost like the NHL decided they were going to try to counter the narrative that that they didn't call anything in the playoffs, and they're calling everything. And it may be an overcorrection on their part. I don't know, but.
Agreed on that score, but the motivation for me might be a little different because it was broadcast that this was going to be a violent series, and the league's not too dumb, right? They know the way Tampa plays. They know the perception of violence is enhanced when there's activity after the whistle's blown, right? And we discussed at the last show that Tampa's a team that likes the post-whistle activity, and that is probably the trademark that the big bad Bruins, the Philadelphia Flyers, all the big bad teams over the years, it's what they did after the whistle, right, that drew all the attention.
No, most definitely, and it's the shenanigans post play that are what get most teams into the amount of trouble that they get into.
Eduardo, how do you feel about the officiating? I mean, I don't have any complaints about the officiating. There was a phantom hook called, a really phantom hook, that led to a power play goal. But how'd you feel about the officiating?
Look, the officiating in the NHL when it comes to playoff time is always disgraceful.
Tell us what you really think. Stop holding back.
You know what? that's what we are here for. We are here to tell it like it is. We are not here to smooth things over for the NHL or for the MLB or for the NBA. We are here to tell the story the way it is.
Absolutely.
The NHL, during the playoffs in the NHL, for some odd reason, the officiating always gets a little bit of hand in the way they officiate. And with Toronto, happens to be that they try to call everything on under the skies to try to prevent the Leafs from getting to second round. But that's just my opinion. In this case, yes, there were minors that could have been not looked at, and they still make them. But that's the way the NHL likes to play the game. They like to see how do we say the good series advance. They don't like. They want to have an American versus American team because that's a bigger market for ESPN and family.
Aside from that, I guess the beginning of your conversation, the end of the conversation, it is what it is. But Aaron, at the end of the day, what needs to happen, hopefully, is that they set a bar, right? They set a bar and they maintain that bar so that later when guys realize that marginal calls are going to be called, let's go on the assumption that they're marginal calls and they're calling everything, even stuff that's marginal. As long as they keep calling that stuff, the players aren't going to do the marginal stuff because they don't want to go in the penalty box. The problem becomes when the referees all of a sudden go, you know what? What the heck? I'll let go a couple of marginal calls. And oh, what the heck? I'll let go a couple of flagrant calls. That's what we don't want. Is that a fair statement?
I think so, and most hockey players operate under the usual old saw of give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah, well, the players are going to do that, but if they know they can't, see, that's the thing. If they know, they're going to keep trying until they can't. Well, right now they're being told they can't, and as long as the officiating is consistent and says and repeats and reinforces, rinse and repeat the fact that if you do it, you're going to get called, be assured. I think we'll end up with better hockey, to be honest with you.
And again, I think what a lot of people misunderstand is that we're not looking for them to call everything. We're just looking really more for consistency.
A bar. Set the bar and keep
just
it.
The bar. Yeah.
That's it. Right? And when we say a bar, it's not an invisible bar. It's a bar that you can plainly see. That is everything everyone's looking forward to. Now, the officiating isn't what caused the Leafs the loss. What caused the Leafs the loss was that their penalty killing abandoned them. Something that was in the first game was outstanding. And their power play, we talked about it. The special teams is what won it. Special teams is what lasted. Somewhere in between, Eduardo, they got to find something. Where's that somewhere in between?
I think the somewhere in between is, and I'll go back to what the Leafs didn't do, because I'll leave Mr. Keefe's change of the lineup aside from the point.
Okay.
But in the first game, we saw everyone play defense. In this game, we didn't. You saw a lot of the heavy players in the team stay behind, and that's when the wonderful opening started to happen. And when you leave Campbell alone to handle a lightning strike, the goals are bound to go in. I mean, that puck goes in no matter what. You cannot allow the Lightning to have not 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s. And that's what came down to.
Aaron, so a weak defense, and I think also they didn't contest the loose pucks as successfully as they did in the first game. When there were pucks up for grabs, the Leafs weren't getting them.
No, the 50-50 battles along the boards is where the Leafs were lacking. In a lot of cases, in the first game on Monday, where they would ordinarily come up with the puck, they weren't coming up with it. There were a couple clear instances where team stick lift came into effect, and Tampa Bay managed to get away with it. Hedman, they lost completely lost sight of Victor Hedman on the first goal of the game.
Oh.
I mean, and it's kind of hard to miss him. Dude's like, what, 6'5", 6'6"? It's really hard to miss him, but somehow they managed to lose sight of him. I'm thinking the white jerseys helped him blend in with the ice too much, so they just sort of glossed over it. But it's these defenses lapses that can't happen. You look at the penalties that Simmons took. Even he admitted they were stupid. Led to 2 power play goals. Those goals don't go in, the entire complexion of the game changes. So it's a question of maintaining discipline for them, not falling into old sloppy bad habits of just putting a stick on somebody if you want to try to slow them down, that sort of thing.
Can I break it down to a simple saying?
Keep it simple.
Who wanted it more?
Yeah.
I don't think it comes down to who wanted it more. Is Tampa felt that they were humiliated in the first game, and they just had to get back to respectability, and they did what they had to do to get that respect back, and to show their fans and the league that we are the 2-time defending champions, and nobody's going to take that away from us. But as I said before, I think the Leafs have to stick with one norm of play, whether it's more fatigued, creates more fatigue for the players, but that's what they are here for. If the championship was decided based on what happens until game 60, that's fine, but it's not. There is games after. When the season ends, there is a playoff, and you have to play with the same intensity that you played all season long with.
But they also have to play with more intensity, Eduardo. The intensity of the regular season is no match for the intensity of the playoffs. I mean, you can hear it in the voices of the fans. It's clear it's a different time of year. I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that's when the intensity level, the difference doesn't have to be as wide as it might be during a regular season. So, for example, we talked about the 50-50 pucks, Aaron. It's the time and space that we talk about in hockey is huge, a big space in the regular season. In the playoffs, time and space, you can divide, by quite a bit.
No, it's true. What used to be during the regular season a good solid 4 or 5 seconds, in the playoffs is down to 2 or 3. Everybody checks that much tighter. Everybody skates just that little bit faster. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, this team peaks during the playoffs, and that's literally what teams work for all season long. They're trying to make sure that they get themselves into a position where come game 82, they are just getting on a really good roll.
And hey, let's, Eduardo said 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion, which means they know how it's done, which means they know how it looks. They know what it feels like. They know what they should do. It's pretty close to the full lineup. I know there's a couple of key players that they talk about that have gone to other teams, Coleman to Calgary, and, all that stuff. But really, the majority of the team, they know what it takes. And that's the most important thing that they have, in my opinion, as an advantage over the Leafs. The Leafs are still in trial and error mode, right? They're They're trying to figure it out, and it's this is a tough battle. You're playing a team that knows how to win at this time of year in the first freaking round, for goodness sake. I mean, talk about 0 to 100.
No, it's true, and despite the fact that Tampa Bay wasn't playing particularly well coming into it during the tail end of the season, they are still the Stanley Cup champions.
They were rolling at the end of the year. They cleaned things up. At the end of the year, they were playing really well. They beat Florida, they beat Toronto, they beat Boston. They beat the same teams that Toronto beat. So they were playing. They're playing well, and they know how to play well. Eduardo, what do the Leafs have to do you think in their game to beat Tampa? What is it that they're looking for, do you think, to do? I mean, the simple answer is, play best 5-on-5. Our power play is better than their penalty killing. Our penalty killing is better than their, all that stuff is obvious.
It's one simple key that Toronto hasn't utilized in who knows how long. Play as a unit. Don't play as individuals. When you start playing in the playoffs, because you are trying to show management what you can really do, because this is the time to show them, then you forget about the goal. The goal is the Stanley Cup, not whether 2 years down the line I have a contract, and if they see me play well in the playoffs, I am going to I made my point that I should stay here. The Leafs have not played as a unit at all in the last couple of years. They are very good at their offensive game is phenomenal, but the unit has also to learn to play together in the defensive end, because if not, they're going to be a success. And that's where strengthening, endurance training is where they should be. And the problem is with Toronto. You have been frank to some of the Leafs training camps, and is that they don't enforce it heavily. These guys the Leafs don't do weight training as much as other teams do. They don't do. When they are on the road, you see them in restaurants, you see them here, you see them there, doing out, enjoying life. You are not paid to enjoy life. You are paid to play hockey. Enjoying life is part of the complement, but you can do that in the off season, because if you're enjoying life too much during the season, this is what happens. You don't have the endurance, you don't have the energy to battle at the same pace as the season progresses.
Well, conditioning is an issue, Aaron. Whether I'm not really well versed on what they do on an hourly basis, but I do watch the way they play. And we did talk about the 50-50 pucks. They weren't getting to them. And to Eduardo's point, proving stuff, Matthews and Marner, they have the extra, burden, that they want to prove. Everybody wants them to prove that they can be successful in the playoffs, and that is by scoring. They did, for the first time since they've been together in game one, they both scored a goal in the same game. Never happened before. So, to Eduardo's point, he's 100% right in regards to the team needing to prove stuff. But again, this is one of the handicaps you have when you're a team that hasn't won a series and playing against a team that's won 2 Stanley Cups. They kind of done it before, right? This is what you're up against. So how do you do what you need to do, which is to overcome that extreme advantage that Tampa has, that they've won before, and what can the Leafs do? I mean, Eduardo's right. They got to play better defensively. There's no question. That didn't happen in game 2. Needless to say. But they also have to be more disciplined, right? Because even Coach Keith said in his his post game that we took penalties we shouldn't have taken. And you can't afford to do it with Tampa because even though we were successful in game one, we knew we'd run out of luck there when it comes to penalties. Eventually, they're going to figure it out because, again, they've won the cup twice. They know what it looks like, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the easy thing is to say keep it simple, but it's also the only real solution that there is to this sort of thing is to dumb it down for your guys. Don't try to get too fancy. Just put your nose to the grindstone and keep going. And when the Leafs play their game, they're very successful at it, and we saw that on Monday. Tampa was back on their heels
and short passes.
Yep. Tampa Bay was back on their heels. They weren't looking for long outlet passes. They were looking for short, controlled, direct passes to most of their scoring plays were a direct result of that, with the exception of Muzzin shooting from the point. You know, most of it is from close, tight, precise. Second game, they got away from that. Long looping passes, guys taking detours and making nice curlicues through the defensive zone and dropping the puck back. This kills me every single time I see it. I know it kills you too, Frank, because I can hear it.
Well, you know, go ahead. I'm sorry. Don't let me interrupt you.
No, it's the whole, you know, on the power play, it's circling back and dropping the puck back and circling back and you know, no, use your speed, get the zone, crash and bang. That's what you do best.
And go for the, you know, the problem with success, I think, is that you assume that you're going to be successful, right? And that's the tender trap. You know, they had success on Monday. On Wednesday, they didn't. And part of it is, the success they had came to them and they had it. Now that they've established they can beat Tampa, that they got to go into the next game on the assumption they can. And they've got to honestly figure out what it takes to win, because each game, you know, is a new set of problems or solutions for teams to discover, right? So they now know that Tampa has a penalty killing unit that's pretty good, a power play unit that's pretty good too. And now they have to play a more disciplined game. I think discipline is something, ironically, they were less disciplined in the game where a guy didn't get suspended than the game where the guy got suspended. And I don't think they had many more penalties in game 2 than they did in game 1.
No, I think it was pretty much roughly the same amount of penalties that were called.
But it was the
minutes,
kind
but the
of
same
penalties
duration.
they took. It was the kind of penalties. You know, they were playing in a very turbulent, physically challenging game in game 1. And of course, you know, you're going to, you know, it's like a dance, right? There's going to be dance all partners. So, you know, that's why there were more penalties. So they've got to stop with the silly penalties. They've got to be more disciplined. They've got to. So for the fans, we're telling you how the Leafs should play, you know, and you have to agree with us. There's no other opinion that matters. It's just the three of us. So they have to be more disciplined. They have to make short passes. They have to win the 50-50 pucks. Individuals, right, on the team. Campbell's not at fault for either of the games. The goaltending's been as good as it needs to be to win in the playoffs, right, Eduardo?
Campbell cannot win alone. That's why there is another 5 guys on the ice.
But he did his part. You know, all I'm saying is he did his part, right? Aaron, he did his part, right? So the problem is in goaltending. So that's not a fix. They want that to remain the same. They want the goaltending to remain the same. I think the thing about defense is, if I may work out, we need to see the defense get more involved in the offense, and that's what those short passes are about. You know, it's about the defense moving up and making those short passes instead of from behind the blue line, the goal line, right? The red line, sorry, the goal line, right? It passes from there. No, you got to get up to the blue line. You know, defenseman to defenseman, and then make that pass from blue line to blue line or blue line to red line. And we know how much the Leafs like the cross ice pass. You know, it's dangerous, but you know they can make it work, and that's what has to happen. You know, their defense has to be a part of the offense.
They have to act as a cohesive unit. That's the answer. I mean,
but specifically at defense, they have to be a part of the team. They have to contribute to the offense.
But
They didn't do that in game 2.
But Frank, now that I'm thinking, and I don't know if it's a Leaf issue or it's an MLSC issue as a whole. This lack of endurance on the ice or on the court or on the pitch.
Yeah, no, you express that. You express that they
Because
need to do a
all
better job of that. But let's talk about on the ice, Eduardo. Let's talk about on the ice and what they're doing. Your point was well made. Health is a concern. What they can do on the ice, Aaron. What can they do better on the ice? What can the defensemen do better on the ice?
Well,
we haven't talked about that yet.
If you want to talk about defensive participation, yeah, definitely jumping in on the rush is one thing. I mean, we saw a great example of that on the Leafs' third goal last night with Brody and Kerfoot. When Muzzin chipped in from the point there during the first game, that was absolutely fantastic as well. And again, it's the problem is that a lot of the times their defensemen don't necessarily make the greatest choices when it comes to when to pinch.
Okay.
And that leads to odd man rush situations going the other way. And that happened a couple different times last night where Tampa Bay ended up coming in 2-on-1, 3-on-1. It's why Jack finished the game with an .852 save percentage, because there were a couple opportunities where the Leafs did lead him out to dry because the defenseman got a little too anxious and made bad decisions when it came time to pinch. Monday's game was almost picture perfect in that regard. They timed their pinching well. They knew when to press. They got shots through and on goal. And again, this is like two diametrically opposed games that the Leafs played here. It's hard to just look at it and reconcile the two different teams and how differently they played between Monday and Wednesday night. Now, a lot of times they say that the hockey series doesn't really begin until you've lost at home. Well, the Leafs have lost at home. Technically speaking, now they've lost home ice advantage. They need to make sure that they go into Tampa Bay and do the same thing.
So they have to do the split that Tampa did to even things out, obviously. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I agree with you 100% with everything you said there, and absolutely, they have to show better judgment in as far as when they decide to pitch and the kind of plays they make. They also, deeper in their end, when they're behind the net, they've got to figure out a way to negate the pressure that Tampa's putting on the defense, because those mistakes that you talk about happen even below the red line, the goal line, right? And they're happening because they're under a lot of pressure. So we're back to those short passes again, and they have to be short passes where this sounds silly. They have to be short passes where the Tampa players aren't. And that seems to have been one of the problems as well. So the defense is, Eduardo, the offense. We've seen Matthews score. We've seen Marner score. We've seen defensemen score. The offense is there, like you said. How much of a commitment to the offense do you see the Leafs pushing? Do they have to be an offensive juggernaut, or the forwards as well have to be more attentive to detail when it comes to defense?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it has to get back to. The offense is there. They have to time themselves better to make better shots and get that puck through the goalie. But the main fact with the Leafs happens to be that the transition from being in an offensive position to a defensive position has to be as fast as the one from defense to offense. And if they don't do that, it's not going to work. And I'll go one farther than Aaron said. They cannot come out without 2 wins out of Tampa, because if they come out without the 2 wins, they are not going to win this battle.
Well, it'll be a best 2 out of 3 if they split in Tampa, and if see, the thing is, we were all excited they won Game 1, but that's just because relief was really the reason. Because this was a tough team they're playing. I don't disagree at all, Eduardo, with what you're saying. But from another perspective, would be that they need to play better than Tampa. They have to win the next game, so that Tampa has to win the next game to stay even. To your point, they can't let Tampa get ahead because, Aaron, if Tampa gets ahead 2-1, desperation isn't going to favor Toronto very well. That's one thing we've learned about them this year is, I'm not suggesting that they haven't fared well under adversity, but it has been something that has given them problems. Desperation has caused them problems this year.
No, it's very true. No team plays well when they're chasing. I think it's almost a universal truth when it comes to sports is no team ever plays well when they're trying to push too hard to catch up. And for a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, if you go down 2-1 in your home building against the Maple Leafs, that places them in an extraordinary situation where they know they're going to have to try to pull out something big, which means they start taking bigger risks. They start taking gambles. Things have a greater potential to fall apart. Vasilevsky tries to do too much. Stamkos will try to do too much. Hedman, all of those guys, you need to put the screws to them. And
that's when the Leafs speed becomes handy.
Yes. Because when you're a total speed merchant team, and when you have guys that are fantastic in a straight line, the way the Maple Leafs are, the faster you get into a zone, the more you can make them make mistakes.
Yes, this is the Tim Hortons part of the conversation. Turnovers, turnovers, turnovers.
But it's the advantage, and I'm not going to say that they are going to win the next game. But what I'm going to say is that they have a better record on the road than they have at home, and that's one thing that Tampa will take into consideration, how they align themselves for this next game, because the Leafs have proven that they are a better road team,
and they can't give the less experienced, less successful team the leg up 2-1. Right? That's the other thing, because the confidence the Leafs had and their fans had after Game 1 is nothing compared to what it'll be if they can win the next game in Tampa. Because that's what happens in the playoffs, right? The stakes get higher, the rewards get more, and the depression becomes easier. So it's playoff hockey. That's why we love it so much. That's why we're more than willing to do a show as many times, as far as Leaf Talk's concerned, under these circumstances, because quite frankly, we all get a kick out of playoff hockey. There's nothing like it. The pressure of playing under pressure is awesome. And we spend all year nagging about people, okay, I nag about Nylander. And then what does he do in the playoffs last year? That's what makes hockey and playoff hockey so interesting. Who's going to be the hero? And, as a guy who's been watching the Leafs very closely, because it's what we do, there are a lot of guys that could be heroes on that team, and I'm dying to see if any of them can be. And yeah, of course, we're rooting for the Leafs, because as long as they're in the playoffs, there's Leaf Talk. And so for us, it's a very selfish it's not about being a Leaf fan. It's about wanting to do the work and have the fun talking about it, because it's who we follow, where we live.
One of the things that I see for Tampa is Tampa needs to win this game, because is their home opener in the playoffs, and if they don't do that,
big game.
Remember, one of the things that I always laugh with Tampa is that they are in Steinbrenner territory, and when you have Yankee fans in a baseball arena, in a hockey arena, is not going to be a nice thing to hear if you start losing.
Well, you know, when you want to pick up that point, Aaron, and then we can talk about the traveling show that is the Leaf fan in Tampa.
It is very true. You know, the last thing that you need to hear as the home team is the other team cheering. And it's I liken it to the Ottawa syndrome, because there's usually more Leafs fans in the building than there are Senators fans.
Well, you know, the tickets are a lot cheaper in Tampa.
It's funny how that works, eh?
Well, you know, 4 people can go to a Tampa game and pay less for the experience, and you can throw in flights too. Or gas in the car. Yeah, and get to some real sun. We're getting it today here, so I'm happy about that. But you know, that's the beauty of you know, of the fact that the Leaf fans, they, you know, Keefe has been very pro Leaf fan. Even the last press conference, he mentioned it. He said, you know, they did a good job. They were helping us and all that. And you know, they haven't talked yet. And you know, Keith's going to talk about when he's there. He's going to say he's looking forward to seeing the Leaf fans at the game and that kind of thing. And you know, it's the main reason why people hate Toronto, in my opinion. It's because they're everywhere. Leaf fans are everywhere, so they're easy to hate. There's always a place for them to be hated. So you know, I'm looking forward to seeing the crowd in Tampa, not as much as in Toronto and how they react, but more or less to see how loud the Leaf fans can be in Tampa. I'm dying to see that, because it's one of, you know, outside of Canada, I don't know, guys, outside of Canada, is there a place other than Tampa that has as many Leaf fans other than Buffalo? In the Canadian cities, and I include Buffalo. You think about it. What's the next city after Buffalo? The other American city. Is there, you know,
that is, you know what? That is actually a bit of a brain tickler. Because when you really think about it, where would Canadians love to go the most? And the thing is, they're not going to BB&T Arena, you know,
No.
in Florida for the Panthers games.
That's a little too deep.
So
maybe Detroit.
Yeah. Well, that was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
But Detroit, yeah, you're right. Right now, but we're talking playoffs.
So
sorry, Detroit.
you would have
sorry, Detroit.
you would have Leaf fans probably in Arizona, Dallas, all the South.
Oh, they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
No,
they're
no,
everywhere.
but large amounts because of the weather situation.
Well, a lot of the
They are
actors and
still down
comedians
there.
in LA.
No, I don't think there's crazy Leaf fans in LA. They are crazy.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't disagree with you guys at all. I just think it's going to be a revelation, a relevant revelation, a little tongue twister for you folks at home to play along. A real revelation. I did it to myself. A real revelation to how many fans are going to be there. I'm telling you, it's going to be palpable. It's going to be noticeable. I think it's going to be awesome.
I mean, when it comes to playoffs, yeah, pretty much any city is going to. Leafs fans are going to try
Washington?
to take over.
Remember Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do.
That's how we got Dark Guy.
Right? Yeah, that's how Dark Guy became Dark Guy.
I remember the Leafs fan in Washington in the playoffs, and it was.
They travel well. They're like Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans.
I was going to say, when it comes to hated fan bases, it's Rider fans.
There are a lot of parallels, right? There are a lot of parallels.
Because they're everywhere.
Well, that's the point. That's why they're easy to hate, because they're everywhere. You know,
we ran into a whole bunch in Dunedin, and they were all wearing Riders shirts at a Blue Jays baseball game.
Yes, absolutely. Some of the best baseball players in Major League Baseball come from the prairies, man. You know, they're a great contributor to athleticism in Canada. You know, I guess while you're watching Leaf Talk, Eduardo Harari, Aaron William Freeland, Frank Stanisci here with you, discussing this playoff series between Tampa and Toronto. Tampa is the favorite. We've said that over and over again. We've talked about a lot of things here: defense, goaltending. The goaltending, the Leafs have been par, right? It's been pretty even, the goaltending. We talked about Campbell being okay. How about the goal scores, the offensive threats? We really haven't seen a lot offensively. I know it sounds silly. We haven't seen really a lot offensively. We've seen a perfect example of power plays. I don't count that as offense, but 5-on-5 offense. Do you think game 3 will show us some of that? Both teams, the players that they have that are so good 5-on-5. Will we get to see some of that now?
It'd be nice to see. I mean, I know Bunting scored with assists by Marner and Matthews.
Yes, and everybody was looking forward to him being back, but it was his first game back.
Yeah, but here's the thing: assists by Marner and Matthews, as opposed to them actually scoring.
Yeah,
later on in the game, Marner scored, assisted by Matthews, which was great. So there were 2 of our 3 goals, and the big guys were in on that one. First game, I mean, Mitch Marner has now had, I believe, 2 power play goals in the past 2 games, which is absolutely fantastic to see. The Leafs have managed to score shorthanded. That is good to see.
Again, 5-on-5, Aaron. We haven't seen much of that, and I'm not just talking Toronto.
Yeah, everywhere it's been the same way. It's been special teams, special teams, special teams. The one player of concern for me, though, has been Tavares. He just seems to have disappeared.
He's, the serious question, which sounds very negative, is that he's lost a step. He's just not quick enough. These are 2 teams who have a lot of speed on their team, right? We saw the old guy Perry. See the goal he got?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of speed, that it's quickness more than speed. Tavares hasn't shown his quickness is that's my concern. I haven't seen his quickness. Like, you're not going to get speed from Tavares. You're not getting that from him. He's not gonna beat somebody down the ice. So it's about quickness for him.
You haven't seen. I hate to say this. You haven't seen anything from Tavares since he got the big contract. Playoff time. You see it during the season, yes, you do, but you don't see it in the playoffs. We brought him here not for the regular season. We brought him here because he was a scorer in the playoffs when he was with New York. And he has not amounted to anything in the playoffs.
Well, that's true that he hasn't amounted to much, but really historically he hasn't spent much time in the playoffs.
No.
So he came to Toronto in the hopes that he'd get to experience the playoffs. The Islanders weren't very successful with him as their captain.
I'm just still confused as to why he would want to come here if he was looking for playoff success, based on the fact that we never seem to be able to make it out of the first round.
I think he came here very simply to be, he knew they were going to. I think part of the deal was he was going to be the captain of the Maple Leafs, and he felt with the guys that they had here, the young guys that they had here, and he made it very clear. He said to me, "You're going to sign them, right? Otherwise, I'm not coming." "Yeah, I'll sign them." "Okay, I'm coming," because he saw a lot of stardom there. He's a hockey fan too. He knows what hockey players look like. He knows what's going on in junior. He knows what's going on in World Junior Championships. He knows. He came here with a lot of young studs on this team, and 2 players, Marner and Matthews, who both came to Toronto with the possibility of being generational players, right? That wasn't an exaggeration. So, yeah, of course he came to Toronto.
But at the end of the day, it's lead by example.
But Tavares doesn't have the ability to lead by example on this team other than working hard. He can't show how to skate fast because he can't. That's not what he does.
But not everything reflects on the ice. He hasn't.
He does everything off the ice. I think he's probably one of the best leaders in the league. I believe that.
I don't see that though, because every time that you see Tavares talk about the game, has been negative. When he speaks to the media, he speaks in a very negative tone. We should have done this. We should have done that. It's not I should have done. I could have cooperated, been more helpful. You lead by example whether you are talking to the press or in the locker room.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so he's not taking on responsibility.
Correct.
Okay.
And that demoralizes a team.
But my problem with him is that, you know, he can't skate with this team. Does that sound terrible to say that?
He has good short speed jump. He just doesn't have higher top end, I think
No.
is what you mean, right?
Well, it just he can't skate with this team. You know, he has to be in the bumper position, which basically, what's the bumper position, Aaron? Stand there and look
front
pretty.
of the net. Yeah.
Stand there and look pretty. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that he's not a great player. Of course, he's a great player. He's a great leader. You know, he's doing the things that he can do, but winning like 80% of the faceoffs. What else? You know, like, you know, there's things that he does that are really important. But at the end of the day, what, you know, it's just until he scores a goal, people are going to look at him the same way we looked at Marner and Matthews before they scored, right? Right? Because the problem with the Leafs is they don't just have things to prove and you said it, Eduardo, they don't just have things to prove as a team, they have things to prove as individuals, and that might get in the way a little bit of what you're going to do as a group, to your point.
I mean, it's sad. It's sad to see that we paid for a guy that was supposed to be the guy that would bring this group together.
But he was never the guy who was going to skate with a fast skating team.
Oh,
he was never that guy. He's never been that guy.
He wasn't brought to Toronto to skate with the team. He was brought to Toronto to unite the team.
Absolutely.
And I think that leadership is not there because he is just not capable of staying afloat one of the key things to Tavares when he came here, and I was so happy about it, was that he was a great passer and a great stick handler. And where has that gone? Because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, again, it all comes down to the game is the speed of the game is passing him by. You know, the Tavares-like players aren't going to be as successful as they were years past. And you know, with the advent of, you know, hooking, holding, penalties, all those ones being removed, we know that Tavares's biggest strength is in tight, right? So when you sit there and say, okay, there's not going to be as many situations where you're in tight now. Geez, thanks. Says, like, if I'm Tavares, I'm going, I don't really like these new rules because I used to break through holds. I used to skate through hooks, you know. I'm not, you know, I'm just talking now. It's not fair, but at the end of the day, Tavares has to show some leadership on the ice. I don't want to say he doesn't have it off the ice, Eduardo. It's not that I'm saying he does. I don't think it's important. I think, like you said, he has to show his leadership on the ice. He needs to produce on the ice. And Aaron, I don't know. I mean, how does Tavares look effective on the Leafs against Tampa in the playoffs in round one after the series being tied 1-1?
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation where he's going to have to seriously sit back and reevaluate what he can do to be more effective for the team. I mean, every team has its role players. I'm just wondering if at this point, you know, Tavares is being reduced to an $11 million role player.
Well, that's what he is. Right? That's what he is. And under Keefe, you know, he likes to use not everybody. He likes to use 10 players on the power play, right? He's dedicated to 2 units. He believes in 2 units.
Yeah, and you know, it's the Franken line. It might suit Tavares better if he goes on with the Franken line at the end of the penalty kill, or at the end of the power play. You know, that line that you have out as a buffer before you get all the lines back to normal. That might be the spot for him to do the most damage.
Yeah, I you know, is the bumper position effective against Tampa?
Yeah, that's the other question that you have to examine too, is what has given you the most success recently? Can that be replicated? You know, and again, what they did during game 1 was textbook. It was perfect. It was their game to a T. And they completely abandoned that. You know, it was like you got finished putting the IKEA furniture together and you just tossed the instructions and said, well, I'm not going to need it for the next one I build.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but I think also there's another team involved here. So, there's
True.
punch, counter punch, right? And the Leafs hit Tampa with a nice counter punch, but they didn't follow up with an uppercut or a straight out to the button shot, right? You know what I mean? Like the kill shot.
Yeah.
Like they had them on the ropes, right? And this is the thing that the Leafs have to prove, not just to the fans and not just to the coaches, but to themselves, that they know how to provide a knockout punch. And game 2 is proof that they still need to work on that knockout punch. So, they had Tampa on the ropes. They win instead of lose, 2-0, and then they have an opportunity to show that they can take out the two-time defending champion. And their follow-up game showed that they didn't have plan B ready after plan A worked.
Now, on the flip side of that coin, Andre Vasilevsky is currently 15-0 in games after games he's lost in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
he has not lost more than one game in a row in the past 30 games that he's played.
Right.
So
True.
there is that to contend with as well. So, while we may sit here and bemoan the fact that the Leafs are unable to put them away, the other thing that does have to be considered is A, two-time Stanley Cup champions, B, Vasilevsky is frightening.
Absolutely.
So,
but how do you defeat the two-time Cup champion without breaking a trend?
well,
Isn't that by definition what you're supposed to be doing? It's breaking a trend.
I mean, they won the first game, so they just got to keep making sure that they win every other game.
Counter punch,
Yeah.
It's a boxing match. If I can use the boxing match, analogy, you can stagger the opponent, but you got to knock them out. And not that they had the Tampa staggered, but they had Tampa on the ropes, and they could have delivered a staggering punch in game 2. They didn't do it. That's my silly point. And they have to do that because they can't go to 7. What am I saying? I'm crazy. Of course they can. They can go to 7 every series. Look what Montreal did last year. This is the thing. It's an endurance test. The National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs is an endurance test. So now they're at 1-1, best of 5. Now they have to win. They still have to win 4 games. They just have to do it before the other team.
The team does,
right?
Yeah. That's the kicker, isn't it?
And it would help if they'd win the next one. So in the last minute or two, what does a Leaf victory look like, Eduardo, for them to win?
Like I said, and I'll repeat this. 1, don't change lineups. Use the lineup that won. 2, play as a unit. You cannot leave your goalie unprotected.
Okay, Aaron, we only got 2 minutes left, Eduardo. Go ahead, Aaron.
So yeah,
you got a minute.
You dance with the lady what brung you. That's
40 seconds,
Eduardo's point right there, and that's exactly where you want to keep it. Don't monkey with success too much. Make sure that you keep on it. And again, this is old and hackneyed. Play your game. Don't let them take you off your game. So
my version is very complicated, and it may be hard to understand. The Leafs have to score more goals than Tampa in the next game.
In the words of Bob Cole, the Leafs are unbeatable when they score more goals than the other team. So, yeah.
Aaron, thank you for this. Eduardo, thank you for this.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Frank.
For Aaron William Freeland and, of course, Eduardo Harari, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Leaf Talk. Aaron live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Leaf Talk, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for being here, everybody. Enjoy the playoffs.